Okay, so I wanted to expand a little bit more on the last video, so I added some sample fixed cost in here, right? So we're talking about the same lane, so basically if you go on the load board and book a flatbed load from Bear, Delaware to Providence, Rhode Island, make $1,400, come back, get a backhaul, going pretty close by for $750. These are on the higher end, I would say, of rates for if you're doing spot work. So, at least I'm pretty certain. We could go double check that. But so I added in our fixed cost here, right? So for the truck, I assume that you should be getting a newer truck. You shouldn't be getting an older one. I know that a lot of guys are very romantic about wanting trucks that are from like 1989 and stuff, but really, if you're going to run a business, you need to minimize your risk and get a 2021 truck or newer, 2022. Anything older than that, in my experience, will break down on you way too much and just be an issue. So trucks are very, very cheap right now too, if you can find the right one from the right place. So you should be able to get a 2021 truck, day cab or sleeper for around this 90,000 range. But for the sake, we use 90,000. So basically for the truck, I have the truck payment in there at a monthly $1,706.46. This comes from, I use the bank rate loan calculator. So this is financed $75K over 5 years at 13% interest. If you're just starting, this is normal. You might be able to get like an 8 to 7% loan if you're a larger company at right now. The lowest we ever got was like January 2022. We got an interest rate of 3.8% on, it was 28 pieces of equipment at that time. So, but the federal funds rate is up, so are interest rates. But if you're just starting out, 13% would be good. You can see 15 to 20% as well. But in here, you just plug in your numbers. You get this monthly payment of $1,706. For insurance, this is also kind of low, I would say, for if you're like a one truck operation. So even if you're like an 8 truck operation, this would be a pretty good rate depending on the amount of policies that you need. So if you're only using like $100,000 cargo policy versus $250,000 if you're hauling less risky products, if you're not going as far or not going into ports and stuff, it all depends. So for us, we need lots of different insurances. So we have like employer errors and omissions, we have crime insurance, we have our broker bond, we have $250K of cargo, we have an excess liability policy, an umbrella for an additional $2 million above our general liability. But really you only need $1 million of general liability if you're just starting, $1 million of auto liability, and you don't even really need workers' comp if you're just starting off and it's just you and maybe you hire like one 1099 guy. So this $26,000 I think is somewhat reasonable if you have less policies and you're just starting out. So we have our rent. This is rent for like one truck and one trailer. I'm basing this upon Delaware, Philadelphia rates. I know that we've had rates up in Newark, New Jersey that are like $600, $700 per spot. So it all depends. Obviously the work up there pays a little bit better, and the spots are in more demand. Far less going on in Delaware, therefore cheaper. So keep that in mind. Then the insurance and trailer rental. So this would be a good rate for a trailer rental. Like I think I said in another video before, you should be reaching out to like, if I reach out to just every single place that rents trailers, like you should reach out to 20 places. I would get a trailer as soon as possible versus waiting 6 months, 12 months, because you're just going to yield a higher rate. So if you want to do power only and you find a great company to work with, or really you'd be leasing onto a company or just working the same project all the time, like that's great for you. You can always return the trailer or not use it. $500 a month, not too much of a risk. But as a driver, you'll be able to bring way more to the table if you have a trailer, right? So if you're willing to do harder work, tarps, chains, sometimes unloading yourself, then you're actually bringing more value to the table, and you're going to have less financial worries if you do harder work. So you should try to bring more to the table. And if you have a trailer, that means you are bringing more to the table, and it is for how much it costs and how much extra value you get and you bring, you should have a trailer. Very low risk. There's plenty of trailers out there right now, especially just because the market is not as good. But you got to have a trailer or access to some trailer. There's ways, don't go stealing people's trailers. That's possible as well, but they'll fine you. So, or they'll threaten to sue you, and then you'll settle on a lower amount. But if you add all these costs in here, in the end of the day, you're looking at $159.01 of daily fixed cost. Now, there's always much more than this, so I would probably almost add another $100 or maybe another $50, depending on how cheap of a person you are. There's certain guys who can just run bare bones. You might want to throw like your phone on here, any software, basically anything that is not associated with the truck moving and operating and generating revenue specifically in that moment is a fixed cost. So software, fixed cost, phone bill, fixed cost. If you got to pay a monthly fee for your fuel card or something, that's a fixed cost. But trying to think of what else. Really, when we just had a couple trucks, these were the primary fixed cost. But I would just anticipate that there's going to be more. When you start, there's going to be chaos. You never know what's going to happen. So just be ready for it. This is not the be-all and end-all. And again, on this truck, for instance, or for, just restating it, this is factoring in 5 years, $75,000 financed at a 13% interest rate, and you are putting down $15,000 into this, right? So that would require you to have $15,000 to start, or obtaining that money in some way or another, right? So now when we look at this, it's far less good, right? Far less good. So we have our fixed cost in here between the 2 days of operating at $318, right? So at $318, the daily fixed cost, the $159, has lowered our net profit per day to $105, which in reality, or the total net $210, in reality is probably closer to break even or losing money, because there's going to be other expenses involved, in operating this. There's always going to be more expenses. This is usually supposed to look great, and if it doesn't look great, that's not great. So again, I would be hesitant to get into this. Now, the biggest place you could save would be the rent, right? Not the rent, the driver expense in here, right? Yeah. So this was $700. So if you're a one-man show, one-man operating team, you could way more easily make this work if you are the person also driving the truck. So if you're think of it, if you're running a business and you have one truck, you make $100 a day because you're putting in 5 to 20 minutes to book a load and send an invoice, then you're really bringing nothing to the table, right? So you don't really deserve to get paid a ton. But what's it called? But if you do it yourself, then you learn the industry a little bit better, and you can weather this storm of worse rates, pretty bad rates we've had almost for over a year now. It really started in April, but you'll be able to way better get over this kind of hump here. So my opinion, I think that there's better lanes out there. You probably want to be just either generating more revenue if you're going to do load board stuff, maybe do more over the road, just because over the road is less desirable. So if you could do the thing that is the least desirable for other people to do, you will get paid more and reduce the likelihood of going out of business, right? So if you look for the most difficult flatbed loads possible that pay really, really high, and you do a great job, then they'll probably keep giving you those loads, and then you have far less risk of going out of business. But again, like I said, you really want to do all your expenses on QuickBooks. You want to get all of this extremely in line. Look at your P&L on a monthly basis. Really figure out where you're spending your money to actually get accurate fixed cost. I promise you it's not a good thing to look at this from a wishful mind, which trucking, you always kind of look from it from a wishful perspective. Like, a lot of guys will never do the fixed cost calculation and just be like, oh, I can make $1,000, I can make $500 a day. But in reality, you have so many bills now because you got to pay insurance, truck, you got to pay for your ELD, software, phone, living out there on the road, or you have to manage a guy and answer phone calls at 2 a.m. and whatnot. There's a lot of different things that are brought to the table that make starting your own business very difficult. There are the proper ways to do it. I've seen tons of guys succeed. There is so many instances of guys going out of business because of wishful thinking, not knowing their numbers, and just booking loads or not running the truck because they're romantic in their head or emotional, egotistic about what they think they deserve to be getting paid versus actually trying to work harder, find less desirable work, low-hanging fruit essentially, and getting through a time like this that is very, very difficult, where rates are low, fuel prices high, drivers still getting paid pretty highly. So that's my 2 cents. So this lane really is like a Delaware to like Massachusetts, Connecticut area lane. I'm gonna make other videos going to the Midwest, Florida, Texas, California, Oregon, basically everywhere. I've done this with, my team before, where basically we analyze all the lanes in the country and see, okay, which ones actually work the best, and price out a lane with a customer going to Texas. How are we actually going to fare, and how is that going to fit into our models from before? So stay tuned. I'm going to keep making more of these, and everyone's got their own unique fixed cost, but if you think of anything in particular that I did not include, please feel free to comment, and thank you for listening.